What's going on in here? That's hashtag awkward.
Hashaton Scarab's Fist. For a white and a black, you get a 1/3 legendary creature zombie wizard that says whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 and a blue. If you do, create a tap token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. We are off to the races. Time to dodge, dash, and sabotage all of your contemporaries in this card crashing, cycle smashing adrenaline race. I present you with a deck that's worthy of Hashaton themselves, and a juicy copy ability that gets ahead by making use of cycling and all of its glory. With Hashaton, you can piece together a board of well-costed 4/4 zombies that not only have big enough bodies to make others wary of them, but also contain some abilities that can grant super utility or help the board. Cycling is an ability you can activate at instant speed, so while you can't block with them, because they enter tap, you can always make them before your turn for surprise value that people just weren't planning on during their own turns. So buckle up, hit that turbo subscribe button, meaning that you bell and everything. I don't know, car pun? And let's race into some of the ways that this deck makes our creatures harder, better, faster, and stronger. I don't know how Daft Punk fits into it. Angel of Ruins. Angel of the Ruins. For 5 white, you get a 5/7 artifact creature angel with flying that says when Angel of the Ruins enters, exile up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. It also has plane cycling for 2, meaning you can pay 2, discard this card, and search your library for any planes card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. The cards in this deck rely on the process of cycling, whether it be land cycling or just regular cycling. You want to use the card's ability to pitch it into the grave and then draw another, or, search for some land. The Angel happens to have a plane cycling ability, meaning usually for 2 mana we get to search for any planes that we want in exchange for the card, including non-basic planes. That's great on its own, but we can ruin their day with our commander out. If you wanted to, you can get that 5/7 flyer with pretty much the same text as Return to Dust on an ETB, but it will be full price. That's nice and all, but what if you don't mind it being a 4/4 black zombie that enters tapped instead? Well, if that's the case, then it only costs 4 into blue, 2 for the plane cycling, and then the rest for Hashaton's ability, and it enters tapped, instant speed, and replaces itself with a planes card. Any planes in your deck, any of them. Again, that can be the multi-type lands. That means you mana fixed and guaranteed your next land drop while taking a slight downgrade with a flash speed tapped 4/4 for 5 instead of a sorcery speed untapped 5/7 for 7. You're also a blue player, so people will see you hold up some mana, and they won't know if you're just waiting to counter something of theirs or simply foaming at the mouth for another card with cycling. Make use of that. Remember, the golden rule to Magic. It's not cheating if they don't catch you. And there's also that other one. It pays to procrastinate. In Magic, you want to do things at the last minute. Don't make all of your creatures on your turn if you can help it. Wait until right before your turn since they enter tapped anyway. Make it a surprise. Come in at the last minute with a horde of zombies to devastating effect. Most of the cards with cycling are fine, but with the exception of a notable few, most of the decks are just going to be full of tapped 4/4 flying zombies that flash in with an ETB that draws a card essentially, or a land. The notable few will be like Alabaster Host Intercessor, which will get rid of a token problem either forever as long as it's a creature, or just lock a creature down until it leaves the battlefield. Curator of Mysteries can help you select the cards better by allowing scry when you cycle or discard. I'm also not too sure whether or not the cycle happens first or if the ability will scry first. So either you scry before you draw or you draw then scry. If it happens the first way, then the regular cycle is better. If it happens the second way, then the land cycling is better. Let me know in the comments what it is. I just didn't look it up. Sorry. Eagles of the North, Anthems, and it grants a first strike ability, and then Rampaging Spiketail will protect the creature you control. And That comes in pretty clutch when you least expect it, especially if you're doing it at instant speed. That's just yet another benefit to doing things as late as possible. But those really are the only ones with super notable abilities that have cycling. Otherwise, the majority of them, again, 4/4 flyers that enter tapped. But for 5 mana, having a flashy 4/4 flyer that replaces itself, that's pretty good. And the cycling is nice, but when you want to do a lot of things, the fact that it does cost mana is a little expensive. So I built in a bunch of ways to get around that inconvenient little fact. So let's get into our all-star looty scooty crew, the looters. And in a quick side note, I'll be at MagicCon Chicago here in a few weeks. So if you're going, or on the fence about going, I would love to see you there. I'll have a promo pack for anybody who says hi, while supplies last. I wasn't able to get a creator badge this year, so no booth or anything, but you will find me on the floor playing Commander all weekend. You can find Steven, Brian, or me and say hello, but not Spencer. He has more important things, more secret things. But first, a Thought Courier. Thought Courier, for 1 and a blue, you get a 1/1 creature human wizard that says tap, draw a card, then discard a card from your hand. I can't tell if it's their brain or if it's just a hat, and honestly, that scares me. With this barely human wizard on the field, you can just tap it to take the next card out of your library and then pitch a card you wanted to discard anyway. It makes the normal cost of discarding go from 2 to just tap, but in reality, this is better than cycling because we still get to draw the next card of our library even if we have no cards in hand. It could still be a downside because if we don't draw a creature and we have none in hand, we can't really use Hashaton's ability. But with almost 40 creatures in the deck, you have a pretty good shot of hitting one. Plus with Arcade Ganon, we not only get to do the boot scoot looty, but if we happen to yeet an artifact by accident, we still get a chance to get it back. That's not even mentioning the fact that we can get around costs of other creatures that normally wouldn't have a cycling ability, like Disciple of Bolas. We take it from being a 4 mana 2/1 to a 3 mana 4/4 with flash. That just makes it better overall. Forensic Researcher now costs the same, but has flash and is a 4/4 black zombie. But it enters tapped, oh well. If you really want to dig like a champion, you could also throw out a Magus of the Bazaar, draw 2, bin 3. This is for the big dogs, but if you are in the end game, this is kind of perfect. It digs fast and it doesn't stop for anyone. It don't got time for that. Or you can just flat out play Fluctuator. I mean, right now it's 44 cents, so if you think cycling is going to be the next big thing, grab it while it's hot, I guess. But now, cycling abilities of all kinds, that includes plane cycling, island cycling, swamp cycling, they are all counted as cycling abilities. If there isn't a pip in the cost, pretty much everything in this deck is free. I'm saying pretty much because I kind of changed these things, but all the ones right now are 2 or less, or they have a pip in there. 2 generic mana less kind of makes them all free. That is the absolute all-star of this deck. It'll help you get your game on. Go, play. Plus it's only 2 mana, so if you were planning on doing a cycling ability anyway, it pretty much pays for itself immediately. I just love that it's so specific. That way it stays very budget, because nobody really plays cycling. And if you do, you're pretty cool. But because it costs 2 mana and is a super important card, I run a couple additional cards for value. Tribute Mage will search for it when it enters, and since it's a creature, if you loot into this, you can still pay essentially the same cost to do it at flash speed. The Mere Infiltrator costs 2 mana and has Transmute, so you can pay that 3 mana and discard this card to search for anything that costs 2. It does force you to pay 3 mana for the search, but if you're paying attention, like you should be, you still discard it, so the little guy can become a 4/4 that can't be blocked either. Keep in mind, this doesn't have to search for Fluctuator. It can search for anything that's 2 mana. It's able to find Magus of the Bazaar, Leon and Sun Standard if you need a late game anthem, or Moonsilver Key if ramp is what's on the menu. And if you really wanted to mess with your opponents, you could do Undertaker. Oh god, ow, that hurts. Why does that hurt? Oh. Undertaker. For 1 and a black, you get a 1/1 creature spell shaper that says pay a black and tap, discard a card from your hand, to return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. No, it still hurts. Just do a voiceover. Go to voiceover. You probably already see where this is going. I've been talking like the creatures enter and stay on the field themselves, but in reality, it's still only a token copy of whatever you discard, and it just has its stats and cover changed. So if you think about it, you'll have a graveyard full of creatures that are ripe for the pickings. We can repeatedly get them back in a fun little loop with things like Undertaker. For each black mana we have, we can pitch and copy any creature in our hand while also returning another fun creature to our hand. And if we have more untappers, for each black, blue, and 2 we have, we can keep turning whatever 2 cards we have into a zombie factory. Now that's some real good value. It's not a focus to recur this much, but it does give us great value for whatever we might have kept in the grave. So we also splash a couple of spells like Shattered Crypt and Macabre Waltz. You know, Waltz is funny because as much as they wanted it to be a downside, there really isn't a downside to discarding a card for us. If we already were prepared to pay 2 mana for a cycling ability, then we can turn whatever we discard into another token. That's probably why Restless Dreams is kinda busted here. The additional cost is supposed to slow us down. I know that's what they intended, but it just enables us further. You gotta love it when you find ways to turn downsides into your strengths. So, what's the damage? It's gonna set you back roughly 30 bucks on a deck that gives you amazing use out of a backup commander in a deck. Essentially, another precon if you take the TCG player total price into consideration. Hashaton isn't quite out as I make this deck as well. I mean, I gave it enough breathing room to end up being about $5 and still be $30. So as long as it doesn't like skyrocket, it should be pretty good. And that's that. Let's thank the joke tier member, Picard001, for staying true to the bit. Their insurmountable support still baffles me, so I'll chalk it up to an act of kindness only the gods can understand. And we can thank the higher power members. Hayao, who was my first member, so it's really nice to see you up here. Jennifer Griffith, Devin Spooner, Filthy Casual, Ezavor, A-Train, Angela Ryder, and Morrow because you joined after I was finished recording this. And all the budget supporters out there. With your support, soon I'll be able to turn this hobby into a jobby. I'm sorry, classes did start back up, and with the competition deck testing, I've been a little bit behind, so I'll be back on track. Thank you for all of your continued support.